I've always been interested. Obviously, I've started my little creator
Yeah.
journey, right? And you're someone that's been doing it for 15 years. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions
Yeah, sure.
because I'm like, hey, I've got the man in front of me. I guess one of the things that I'm interested in is how does someone that runs a social media page actually make a profit?
Okay.
Because like I look at your page and I see other people that do passion projects, right? And you
Yeah.
talk about living your passion and breathing your passion. But how do you convert something that's a passion into something that is profitable? Because there's heaps of people that have got passions, but no one knows how to make a fucking dollar out of it.
Yeah. And this is a question I get asked quite a lot, is the way that I communicate it to friends that want to do what they love and turn it into a kind of money-making passion is what's the return on investment that your viewers are going to get from you? Because at the end of the day, if you're authentic and you have something that is original and people connect with you, it doesn't necessarily matter what you're selling. They're going to buy it from you. And with myself, a lot of brands want to work with me because of my creativity and the ideas that I come up with towards marketing and collaborations. That's how most of the money comes from the page. But then when you're building your brand, you should be looking at opportunities of, okay, so I've got this brand. A lot of people do merch, but what makes your merch different to everybody else's? Because everybody goes to the same distributor or the same suppliers and they've got the same t-shirts and they just do a different logo. But if you're going to do merch, what makes it special to them? Is it exclusive to your audience? Is it something that your audience wants? And you always need to think about what your audience is and what your target market is. And if it's, okay, because I did some t-shirts for a giveaway once, and all the t-shirts disappeared within an hour.
How many are we talking?
Only like 100. It was like a giveaway. They bought 100. 50 of them disappeared because they were free, and not a single person bought one. So just from that, I thought, right, my audience isn't at a level where they want to buy something from me yet, because that trust element isn't there. And I feel like a lot of creators, they jump to that too quickly, where they're like, right, I want to make money from my audience now. And I don't think that should be the case. The way that I would do it is you give back to the audience first and say, right, as a goodwill gesture or something like that, I've made a t-shirt. There's 1,000 of them up for grabs. If you sign up to this mailing list, create a mailing list, there's an opportunity there for advertisements with different brands or anything like that. I could talk about this stuff for hours, because there's so much that you can do with your personal brand to make money from it, where I guess you could be coaching people, much like what I do with my friends, talking about creative ideas like that, whether it's merch, whether it's working with brands, or you could necessarily do, they call this thing, I can't remember what the actual terminology is, but where brands will approach you to do a piece for them, and they'll do like a collab post.
Yeah.
But instead what you do is you create that actual piece of content for them, and then only they post it, and you've had no involvement in the actual piece itself.
100%. So, a few people in modelling do that.
Yeah,
They'll go into a store and then they'll put on their kit and they go, here's the footage.
Yeah, exactly. And that's very lucrative for a lot of people, but only the people that have larger followings can do that, unless you're very creative and you come up with ideas that a business can't come up with on their own. It's amazing when you sit down with a brand and I'll just spit out an idea, which I think is just normal for my brain. Like, I've got an ADHD brain, so it's just 100 miles an hour. But I'll get an idea and I'll have to say it straight away. And then a brand will be like, that's amazing, let's do that. So I guess there's so many ways you can make money from it, but the first thing you need to be doing is making sure you've got a strong audience where there's a potential income from there. So what's your value proposition? What's the return on investment from following you? And then the rest will just fall into place. People will connect with you on that level and will want to support you on your journey. Because I think that's the most important thing. If you've got a really hardcore following like I have, they just want to see you win. You'll have those core people, like I've got nearly 30k followers at the moment. I reckon maybe 5 of those are like die hard and hardcore. That's all you need to make money, really. If you create a mailing list and you're selling a product every month, you're doing a drop of something every quarter, that's your revenue stream there. If you're a creator, you have to be on YouTube, because that's just passive income. Brand deals as well are great, but you don't get as many as you think in that space. They don't come every week. It's like every month or so, and they don't pay that well unless you're very, very high profile. They don't pay huge amounts. So it just depends on what the space you're in. If it's fitness, again, programs, I don't know, like supplements, all the jargon that everybody does. But if it's something like music, or if it's something like acting, then you have to kind of look at what niche you can specialize in to then provide a service that's going to make you money.
You know, there's a lot of people that listen that always, like I said, have a passion that they can't put into practice.
Yeah.
Right. And so you've had to do that. And like, especially with your background, I'm interested to know 15 years ago when you started, you said that you probably weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
When you come into this space, you need to be prepared for the negativity and the nastiness that you receive from people that don't even know you.
How can someone be nasty to a person talking about sandwiches?
I don't necessarily understand, but to be fair, my content can be quite disruptive and provocative and rage bait, I guess, because I'll say it how it is. I don't sugarcoat it, and I don't say things for clicks. I'm just saying things how it is. I'm saying, like, say for example, if you're at a restaurant and you've had the dinner and the food's amazing, and you're complaining to whoever you're having dinner with, oh, this food's terrible. Waitress comes over, how's everything? It's lovely, thank you so much. People aren't honest enough about the food that they eat or the service that they're getting because they don't want to be seen to be causing upset or to cause a problem. But food businesses thrive on feedback. Like if you look at Google reviews and things like that, you'll see the comments, and people will respond and be like, please come back in and give us another shot, because they're not going to know unless you tell them. So my content is basically placed around that, about helping them improve. But there'll be people in the comments who are like chefs or just someone who's just bored, and they'll call me every name under the sun. There was a video that went out about me last year or the beginning of this year. People were threatening my family.
What?
Yeah, people were threatening to come and find me. And it was my first real experience of how hateful social media can be. And I thought I was getting cancelled. I thought that was it for me. I was like, right, this is me done. But I spoke to some people that we know, like Prime and Louis, and they went, this is great. Like, this is exactly what you need, because there's going to be, if people don't hate you in this space, you're doing something wrong, because eventually people just get bored of you. But if you're doing things that are being provocative and causing people to converse about you, then it's a good thing in this space. But to go back to 15 years ago, I was 21, 22, making comedy cooking videos. They were really rubbish. Like, I watch them back now and they're so cringe. But back then I thought they were hilarious, and I had a bit of a cult following. I had a huge Facebook page. I was getting 500,000 views every video I was posting.
Back then, that is unbelievable.
And that's huge back then. And like, you can pay for ads and that pushes it further. I was huge in the Netherlands for some reason. The Netherlands loved me. But the people that were putting me down were my own close friends at the time, and I couldn't understand it because I was doing something different to what everybody else does. I lived in a small town. Everyone gets married at 30.
Where were you?
Back in London, well, just outside of London, small little town called Dunstable. And everybody's life there is married at 30, go to the pub on a Saturday, or you play soccer or footy at the weekend. You go home to the kids. That's your life. But then there's this bald 20-year-old running around the local shopping centre in a vest or half naked in a trolley, like making content. And I think I was one of the only people in my town that was making content at the time, and people just couldn't understand it. And I had all these catchphrases and all these sayings, and people would come up to me and like aggressively say them in my face. And I'd be confused. I was like, are you complimenting me or are you making fun of me? And then soon I worked out people were just taking the piss out of me. And that really was quite hurtful, because I was doing something that I loved, but it just wasn't being well received. And then I was supposed to collab with like a really well-known creator, and he's like super famous now, like multi-millionaire. And I had this niche where I would just wear an apron and I'd be doing like little skits in between. I'd do a comedy sketch and then I'd go back to the food. He copied my whole process for like a couple of videos, and I was just devastated, because at the time I was just like, that's my content that you're copying there. And then when I messaged him and said, look, what are you doing? I didn't hear anything from him, and that just really just set me back a bit more as well. I just didn't really know how to react to that, so I just stopped making content for literally 15 years. just didn't go back to it at all.
So you had a complete and utter, like, that's it. I'm disheartened. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. And it just shows out at the time how weak I was back then, to not be like, well, no, I love what I'm doing. Doesn't matter what you think. I just didn't have that ability to say, well, no, I don't care. Because now I don't. Like, I couldn't care less what anyone thinks of me. But back then, I was such a nervous and anxious kid. Like, if someone gave me bad feedback, I'd take it as gospel. And then to see somebody take your ideas and run with it and have so much success from that, it was like, well, is this what this space is like? Is that what I'm going to have to deal with all the time? And I just felt like at the time, I didn't want to do that.
That's gutting, you know.
Yeah.
To have someone take what you feel is yours and you share that and you're hoping to grow. And you see that in any landscape, man, whether it's the workplace, you know, someone has an idea that they present to their boss, but they share it with a colleague and a colleague goes presents it, and it's like their hard work, their after hours, like they're putting in, and it's like, that motherfucker, like, you know, like, and so that like, for me, that has like anger, rage, depression, like all those things. When that unfolded for you, what are the series of events that got you from the pits to coming back and dominating the social media space again?
I think it was a very dark road, because after that I kind of just felt a bit lost. I didn't really know what my identity was. I've always been in sales and recruitment, but I wouldn't say that I'm super passionate about it and love it. I've always been passionate about making fun, engaging content. That's what I've always loved doing. And I knew I'd eventually go back to it, but during that period of the last 10 to 15 years, it's always been in the back of my mind, but I was going into jobs that I didn't want to be in. I was living a life that I couldn't afford to live. I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing and putting myself into situations that were putting me in danger. So, yeah, like you said, from being in the pits, I was genuinely in the pits. There was the period where I nearly ended it all because I was that far. And it took, because I didn't know I had ADHD until I was 27. So that was a big problem for me, is not being able to stick to things and be committed to something that I just wasn't passionate about. With work, I'd be in and out of jobs all the time. But there was one thing that I was really committed to, and that was making content. But I just forgot about it. And I was 27 and I was on a bridge and I was about to throw myself off. And I just had a memory of my nephew, and I just kind of thought, I don't want him to ask, where am I? And he was really young. He was only like 2 or 3 at the time. And I didn't want him to think, he's like, where's Uncle Ross? Because me and him were like inseparable at that age. Like, I don't see him anymore now because he's got autism. He doesn't really remember who I am. But back then, I was like, I can't do that to him. So next thing, I jumped off the bridge. Well, not jumped off it, but I took myself back off the bridge. And I was just beside myself, and I was calling people for help. And this is before my diagnosis, and I spoke to a therapist, and she said, Ross, I think you should come in and have a chat with me. And I did, and she said, I'm pretty certain you've got ADHD, quite severe. I think we need to then put you through that diagnosis, and it changed my life completely. I didn't go on any sort of medication per se, but I knew how to behave in certain situations and how to control it. It's getting a little bit out of control again because I'm overstimulated and there's too many things going on in my life, so I probably will have to go on medication soon. But that was the pits for me. That was like the lowest of the low. And then to get to where, from that to there now, took moving here to start again, to start fresh. Because I felt like growing up, I never really fitted in at all. Like, I had you have friendship groups, don't you? And you have like your family and stuff like that. But I never really felt a part of something there. I always felt like I was begging for people to like me and to be my friends.
Dude, I can resonate with that.
Yeah, and it's like I was part of a big friendship group, and I call them a friendship group, but I was the butt of all the jokes. I didn't really feel like any of them liked me that much. I'd go to football just to be part of something. I was never ever good at football, but I went because I wanted to be around, because they'd all go out together and I'd never get invited if I wasn't there. They'd all be around people's houses and I was always on my own. So I was quite lonely for a long time, and I felt like I could never be the person I wanted to be if I stayed where I was. So I felt like I needed to go somewhere and reinvent myself, or not necessarily reinvent myself, but go somewhere where I could find people that were on my level and appreciate me for who I was. I tried that in London. That didn't work. That sent me down a rabbit hole that I will never go down again. But then I moved here, and within 2 weeks, I'd made lifelong friends who were people that I'd always felt like should have been in my life. And I feel like because of as expats, you come here and you don't really have friends. You kind of understand what it's like to be here on your own, and then everyone just gets around you, and then they're all in the same situation where they want to enjoy their lives where they are, and that's how my friendship groups have been built. And then from that, it's given me the confidence to then grow more friendship groups and put myself out there and be vulnerable. And now I have some of the best friendships I've ever had in my life, and it's like, you know what a friendship's supposed to be now. Whereas before it's like, that wasn't friendship. That was like low-key bullying. And it's like, you don't want to be friends with people that behind your back just slag you off and put you down and don't want you to be there. You want people that want you to be in their presence and want you to win.
Can I ask you something? And you don't have to answer
No,
it.
it's fine.
Firstly, thanks for sharing what you had to go through, because I think there are people that they get into a position or a state where there's no more that they feel that they can give, right? And it's the thought of someone else that generally brings them back to reality. And I've seen that happen a couple of times. If you were a fly on the wall of your own life between the ages of when that happened in your Facebook group and the guy took your idea to you being on the bridge, and if you were a fly on your wall in your own life, who would you have wished to have come into your life at that point in time that wasn't there, that would have helped you navigate that better?
It's difficult for me to say, because I never felt growing up that I had much support from my mum and dad, and I do now. But as a child, I never really felt that I did, because my sisters were two like championship dancers. They were like fantastic at what they did, and even some friends' parents made comments that they feel like I'm neglected as the son of the family. So the only person that I really ever truly connected with was my granddad, but he passed away when I was 7. So I think if there was one person on my mum's side, if there was one person that I would want to be there at that day, it would probably be him, because he was the only person that I ever felt truly safe with. And then when he passed away, I was devastated for months, because it was just, I'd spend after school with him all the time. He was very like immature and silly and fun, but it felt safe. And I think as I grew up after that, I just never truly felt safe. I do now, because that made me quite self-reliant. And I look at and it's a bad thing too, because I'm very self-isolating too. If I feel something's bad for me, I'll just remove it from my life, which is bad and toxic at the same time, but it protects me. And I think that's one thing that I've got for myself, is I protect myself now, and I don't need anybody else to do that for me. So, but to answer your question, probably my granddad, yeah.
Probably granddad.
Yeah.
And what would it have been that he would have told you in moments of stress that you think would have helped you navigate through the situation? Not to the point of where you even got to, but like before that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like to get to that stage is not an overnight thing. That is time and time and time and time in your own head. So take it back. And what is the advice that either you think he would have given you or you would have given to yourself to prevent yourself getting to that position? Or do you think it was necessary for you to get there in the first place, to have that epiphany in that moment?
I think I needed to go through those things, because I feel like everybody has that path set up for them already. I genuinely believe that. And I think you get put into these situations to shape you or to end you, because a lot of people get offered two options. They can go down one lane or they can go down the other one. And you have the choice to go down either. Unfortunately, I went down the wrong one for a very long time, and it took repeated mistakes to realise I'm going to kill myself soon if I don't stop this. And sometimes you need to be in the pits to be able to go, right, I'm not doing this anymore. But I think if my granddad had that type of input, it would just been a smile and been like, what are you doing? You don't need to do this. And I think he would have given me that reassurance that I never got from anybody else, to say that I am enough. I think that's what he would have told me, is that you're enough and you believe in yourself and you can do it. And I think that's what he would have said. But at the same time, like, he was in the army, he was in war. He'd have been like, you got to go through these things sometimes to shape you as a man.
And so the idea of having gone through that now and then reshaping yourself, that's something that doesn't often get spoken about. Everyone sees, oh, they had this, moment in time where it was all rock bottom.
Yep.
And look at them now, right? But there's still a massive gap in between probably those two things that they don't change overnight. Yeah. Where does square one start when you come back off the bridge? Like, what does that, what even happens then? Do you go, fuck, I'm still thinking about it? Or is it that big of a snap? Yeah. That you're like, okay, there's the change I need.
I think it's small steps, because I did continue making mistakes. Like, I don't mind sharing this. I was an addict. I was an addict for 8 years. So you don't just stop being an addict overnight. You almost wean yourself off it. And then you start to replace it with other things. So when I stopped doing drugs, I started drinking more. And then when I stopped drinking, I'd start binge eating. And then when I tried to stop binge eating, I was starting to make myself sick because of it, like bulimic for a little while. But then after that, it was sex. And I was always chasing something to replace the other thing. But as I was continuing, I was like, well, it ain't as bad as doing drugs every day. It's not as bad as that. And I was trying to tell myself those things that it wasn't. But it doesn't matter what it is. It's still bad for you. And I think I sat there because I started journaling a couple of years ago, and that's what really made me see myself who I was. Is I wrote down my thoughts, because I'd never vocalise them or say anything about them. I'd just keep them in my head. And as soon as you get them out on paper, you realise how much you hate yourself and how little you think of yourself to believe that this is what you deserve. And it takes someone like, well, going to therapy to work through those types of things. So therapy really, really helped me. Journaling really helped me. I don't journal anymore because I don't need to. I feel very good where I am right now. But it's a slow burn. It's took me probably the whole 6 years of being here to really find who I am and be confident and comfortable within who I am.
Did you have any times when you felt like you moved? Like, so for instance, the reason why I say this is like, so let's say you had a certain environment in the UK.
Yeah.
You hit this position and you work through some stuff and then you move to Oz. Like, what about if you had the same dramas with people that were still talking behind your back and stuff? Like, how do you deal with that?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I've just had a situation like that. And the way that I get this from my mum, very hot-headed when I feel scorn, if that's the right term or the right word. But if something upsets me, I don't let it bottle up. It just comes out as it is. And if I feel let down, I say things as they are. And there's a situation with a very good friend of mine, and we're working through it now, and I hope we can figure it out, where a lot of Chinese whispers were going left, right and centre, where someone said something about me, or he said something about him, or I've said something about someone, and none of it was true. But you've got people interfering in your lives, saying little bits and little bits. And the way that I would have just argued and argued and argued and argued, whereas instead I just removed myself and gave us some space and some time to just be silent. So I did and you can see it as an immature thing, but I blocked us both on any sort of form of contact, because I felt like we needed that space to just, be alone with our thoughts, think about it from another person's perspective. And when the time was right, we could actually talk about it as men. And that's what we did. And it was, I think it was like 2 months we hadn't spoken, and there was still Chinese whispers within that time, but I didn't really listen to any of it. It was just like, look, when I'm ready, I'll talk to him. And then, because one of my best friends is dating this person as well, and it was causing a bit of rift between us two and another friend of mine. I just went, look, this is silly. This stuff shouldn't be happening. And I don't want to pull people apart. I want to bring people together. That's what my content's about. So it just took one of us to be like, right, let's talk. And I initiated that. And now we're working through it. And I think if someone's if you believe someone should be in your life, then you need to work it for them to stay in your life. But if you don't believe that they should be, then that's not really a friend to me. But I attribute this person to really helping me through really dark times. So I wanted that person to be in my life more. So that's what put the ego to the side, I guess.
It's very hard to put the ego to the side. I had one of my best mates I didn't see for years, right? And he come back home for like a month, but didn't tell me.
Yeah.
And I was gutted. I'm like, you should be telling one of your best mates that you're back in town. And he caught up with a couple of other people, and then I reached out. I said, hey, you in Melbourne? Like, it's like, yeah. And didn't end up catching up, right? And I remember that happening because I was like, he's one of my best mates. And he's literally, I haven't seen him in 4 years. He's come back.
Yeah.
He's caught up with other people, didn't catch up, didn't even text me.
That must have hurt.
Fuck, bro. That was like, and I didn't know how to react to that. I was like gutted. And I was like, but I attributed what he had done in my earlier years to being so monumental that I wanted to give it another chance. But it does require you to put your ego away for a bit. But in saying that, when you do that, you're also going, and you're having to look at it from a certain point of view of going, well, people change and I change and it's okay to change, and it's okay to have a friend that has a certain chapter in your life. They don't have to be there for the entire thing.
No.
And I think that sometimes where we get stuck is that we think that because they're a friend in our 20s, they have to be a friend in our 30s. Yep. And it's hard to let that go. When you got back into this page of yours, how did that make you feel, knowing that the last time you did something like that 15 years ago ended up in flames?
I think when I started it, because I was starting it with somebody else, I was like, I've got support here, I've got an anchor, and we're working at it together. But that person slowly showed me who they really were, that they were quite lazy. And with a page like that, if you want it to become something, because the way my brain works is I see the end goal when the idea begins. So I'm like, banging sangers, this is what it's going to be. This is the end goal. Whatever happens in between, we'll figure it out. And when we did our first video, I sat there and went, this could be this. And he went, oh, that seems like a lot of work. And I was like, yeah, but it'd be worth it though. Like, imagine having this. And he was like, yeah, but like, I don't know, like, I don't really have the time. I was like, well, look, like, if it's too much for you, I'll do this and I'll take a bit of the workload, because I was super passionate about it. I still am. And then soon enough, he just kind of like dropped off, stopped just doing the work they needed to do. And I just said, look, mate, if you're not going to do the work, I'll just take it on myself. And then that's the end of it. And he stepped away about 3 weeks in. So it was because I wanted to, for someone to grow on social media, you need to be posting consistently, sometimes twice a day. Like, it's annoying for people that follow you, but for you to be seen on the For You page and to be going in those types of circles, you need to be posting really, really frequently. It's not to the point where you've got a little bit of a following where you don't have to post as much. But like, there's people who have 300,000 followers that I met at the weekend, and they post twice a day, and they still grow like tens of thousands a week. So you have to be consistent. And he just didn't want to be. And I said, well, if that's the case, mate, maybe you should just step away. And he's like, yeah, I will. And I've heard that he's very regretful of it. But at the end of the day, it's like, again, it was a blessing in disguise, because then I had the freedom, the creative freedom to do what I wanted to do. And no one telling me that, oh, you can't use that music, or you can't say that in a video. I don't want to do scores. And I'm like, shut up. Like, it's my page. I'll do, and that's one thing. I will never allow someone to dictate how I do my content or tell me how I should create my content. And that's one thing I say to brands is, if you give me full creative freedom, I'll work with you. If you don't want to work with you. Because it's my content, it's my brand, and I want to represent it how I want to. And if I can't be creative as I see it, then it's not authentic. And that's the key thing for me here, is authenticity.
You know, I asked you a question prior to this podcast. If you were to do a TED Talk, you'd talk about authenticity. How can someone measure authenticity, and is it possible to tell someone is authentic when they're delivering content?
It's very easy to tell if someone's being authentic on content because it almost comes across as scripted. There's some really good content creators out there who can just off the cuff, just talk on the camera, unedited, for like 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 minutes. I can't do that because I can't speak without like muttering my words, or I repeat the same words, and I say quite a lot. Some people are just so good at that, and that's authenticity, where you just can be yourself on camera for prolonged periods of time. My content's a little bit different, whereas I like to try and add comedic timing, and if I see something that's quite funny, which I may have recorded at the start of the video, or it's at the end and then I put it at the start, like I kind of understand how to edit a story, and that's it. It's like storytelling is something that I think I'm really good at. But with authenticity, I think you just naturally have it. I don't think it's something that can be taught. I really don't, because there's people that have been doing this for many more years than I have, and it just feels scripted, like they're being told what to say, or they're like a really bad actor. There's one creator that I watch, and it hurts my soul when I watch their content, because I'm just like, it just doesn't feel authentic. It's like it's like an advert, and that's your content. It just feels like it's a paid ad, and that's not what content should be. People should connect with you instantly. If they don't connect with you, that's not your audience. But if someone who likes that type of style of content watches it and goes, yeah, this is great, you've done the right thing. Again, like talking about that person's content, that's just not content for me, but that might be for someone else. But yeah, authenticity is just, you just got to be unapologetically yourself and hope that people like it.
Yeah. You know, in my industry as a podiatrist, it's so funny because I watch physiotherapists, podiatrists, osteos all start going on Instagram for the first time. And you know, I've worked with these people, I've sat in rooms with them, I've had coffee with them, and when we talk like this, right, very different. Chill, talk about their patients, talk about what procedures they're doing or treatments. Put them in front of a camera, fuck off, not a chance. You should say, all the language has to be done. You've failed, fucked up, repeated, everything you're trying to say, and they're stiff. Like, dude, so stiff. And I remember doing my first piece of content, and the first words that I said was, I'm so excited. But I said it like I was the most depressed fucker on the planet. I'm so excited to have everyone in the clinic today to listen to me talk. And I've still got that video, right?
Yeah, brilliant.
It's there. It's there to remind me that you've come a long way. But I think from an authenticity perspective, and the reason why I bring it back is that authenticity can be demonstrated on video through practice. Because you can be an authentic person face to face, but put a camera in front. Like, imagine just someone rolling in with 3 cameras like this. Like, I've seen how you can look straight into the lens. Not a problem.
No issue.
No issue. We'll get a little zoom in edit there. But you can do that, whereas it's very hard for people to do that and demonstrate authenticity at the same time, and that takes a lot of practice. So for when you have friends that come up to you and they go, righto, Ross, can you please have a look at my content? And you look at their content and you go, righto, that needs to have more authenticity. Is there anything in your creative brain that can allow people to show off authenticity through video editing or ways that they can record that doesn't have to mean they have to change their voice or anything like that?
I think one thing that's great is using the right music. I find when I do certain videos, I can actually be quite flat in filming, because I might have been up all night editing the night before, or I might have been at an event and I haven't had much sleep, but I've got like 6 videos I need to record that day. By the 6th video, I'm dead and I've got no energy. And sometimes I am really flat in some videos, but I can find a piece of music that is upbeat and fun, and it has like a good bridge, or it has a good build or good chord progression. And you can make a video fun with the style of editing and the right use of music. So music is definitely something that I suggest. Emphasis on certain areas in the videos. Like, you don't necessarily have to kind of do one big block video. Like, they say it's like the attention span of someone now is like of 7 seconds these days. And if you don't grab someone's attention within those 7 seconds, they'll swipe up. If you're not changing the camera angle, either like zooming in or zooming out, or adding something that's flashing on the screen and like giving those sort of stimulations to people's eyes, again, that can help too. It doesn't necessarily have to be yourself. You can use tools in the editing process to grab people's attention and stimulate them in other ways. Because there's people I watch who are so monotone. Like, there's Keith Lee, for example. I don't know if you know who Keith Lee is.
No, I don't.
The most monotone, most boring content creator I've ever watched in my life. But he's the biggest food creator there is on the planet. He's got multi-million followers. He changes food businesses for life. But he talks like this, and he's got no personality, and it's just very, really boring to watch. And I can't watch that. But people love him. But the way that he edits his videos and the way he talks, people connect with him, and that's what I mean. It doesn't matter about how you deliver something; it's about the right audience finding you, and you're doing the right things to catch people. Whether that's using trends or you're adding value. Adding value is probably the key area of content now. If you're not adding value to your audience, like, you need to rethink your posting strategy. Like, what you do, you're adding value by having good conversations and talking about relatable things and relatable topics. People will find you that way. But with, say, a PT, they'll just do a normal bog standard program on a reel. There's thousands of those. Like, what makes you different? And that's where authenticity comes in, where you can bring your personality onto the camera and you talk about things that some people don't necessarily want to talk about. Like James Smith's PT is great at that. He'll say things that people would be terrified to say, but that's his authenticity. He does not care. There's other people that slip my mind now, but the bigger personalities tend to do well on social media because they just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to think about is the camera's right there in front of me. I don't fucking care. I don't care that it's there. It's like talking to somebody else. And that's what you need to kind of zone into when you're on camera. Is just like, people get stiff. That can be taught over time. You can practice over and over and over again. But when the camera comes on, you just need to pretend like it's not there. It's hard saying that because I do it on the street and there's people everywhere, and there's people honking horns and there's people shouting at me and there's people jumping on the camera and trying to get involved. But I just accept it for what it is. And I think there's periods in my life that have shaped me for doing that. Like jobs that I've had, sales has helped as well because I'm always in those situations. But I think it's your environment that you've been brought up in as well that helps that confidence piece on being on camera.
Yeah, it's like a stretch, and knowing that, like, you know, if someone was to say, have you heard of the saying, like, big, hairy, audacious goal? Like, no. Yeah, so it's like when you're setting a goal, like, people go, okay, so, or like, what is it that you want to achieve? And they might say it in front of, let's say, a group of 10 people.
Yeah.
And then they'll say their goal, and it'll be like, just so that it's accepted by everyone.
Yeah.
And they said, what would be a goal that you set for yourself if no one gave a fuck?
Yeah.
And you should see the astronomical stretch or leap that happens from when that happens.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, the same thing can happen when you're producing content. It's like, how would you talk or how would you convey yourself if you were going to do it to 30 random people that would never, ever have known about you and will never, ever care about you again? Versus how would you do it if you know you got mum, dad, or your sister watching?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, everything changes super quick. So knowing how to stretch yourself and having the psychological stretch, I think it's crazy.
Yeah, I think, people care too much what other people think, and that's what most of society is wired to feel like as you grow up, is that, but what will my friends say, or what will my parents say? Those are usually your biggest haters. From my experiences, your biggest haters are the people that's closest to you. There's a group of people that I don't hang around with as much. But when I started doing this page, I had a bakery called No Crumbs Club for a long time, and that was through lockdown, and it was really successful. And part of the content was I would deliver the baked goods on a bike, and it wouldn't matter where it was. Like, I'd travel like 35 minutes on the bike, and I'd deliver the stuff, but I'd vlog everything. And there was this one guy in the group who, like, I'm not going to say anything negative about him, but as soon as I'd walk in the room, piss take immediately. And then everybody would laugh. And I'm like, just trying to do something that I'm passionate about. And like, you can't say that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't give a fuck what you think. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to go home and I'm going to post another reel. But some people will take that as gospel and think, oh, people are judging me. Who cares? Like, at the end of the day, you might not be friends with that person 5 years from now. You'll never see them again. It's the same thing with people in your comments. You're never going to meet them. You'll never meet half of these people, and half your audience just watch you because they enjoy watching you for you. And the sooner people realise that, the better, because then their content will be more carefree and they'll be more creative. Because when you don't, like, it's like when you have a drink and you're electric. You don't care where you are. You will talk to everyone and anyone. But as soon as you go in and you're sober, you've got a little bit of the nervous jitters, and you're scared to go and talk to that girl. You have a bit of alcohol. I'm not suggesting that you do this, but
based off past experiences.
But based off past experiences, you have a couple of drinks and it gives you Dutch courage, and you go and talk to that girl. It's the same with content. The sooner you drop the worry about what other people think and that rejection, the better your content becomes. Yeah.
Who's someone that you've looked at from a content perspective that you've seen completely transform from one version to like a version that's been like successful, let's say? So like they've started off and you're like, ooh,
yeah,
that's not good, to like, wow, what a fuck. And they don't have to be like uber successful, like thousands and thousands of followers, but something that you go, wow, well done, like that's cool.
That's really interesting, because it's funny you say that, and I say this on every podcast I go on. I don't watch much content. I don't, because it's not because I don't want to, it's because I don't have the time. Like I said, I balance a job, content, like marathon training, and all these other extracurriculars that I do. So if I do have the time, I'm just editing. But if there's one piece, that there's one content creator that I do admire, and their content has changed exponentially throughout their time, is a page called Top Jaw. They're like where I want to be as a creator. They do food reviews on YouTube, but now they interview some of the biggest chefs and celebrities. Like, their content's completely changed, but it's almost, I feel like it's regressed. It's gone from what it was great at doing in terms of going and eating with people and having great conversations and going to different cities and meeting great people, to now standing out the front of restaurants and just interviewing Jamie Oliver. That's great, but where's the food? Like, where is the original reason why people started following you? And that's the thing, that people will follow me and they won't want to stay for the progression to what it's going to become. I'll lose those on the way, and that's fine. But what you got to think about is the people that you're going to bring along the way. But yeah, Top Jaw are probably the example that I'd go from. But that example is more so, I don't want to regress with my content. I just want to keep going in a positive way and not lose sight of why I am where I am right now. That makes sense?
Makes sense. So
yeah.
So effectively what you said is they've made a change in their content, of which part of that change is something that you see isn't authentic to who they were potentially. Yeah,
I just think it's like, you can tell when a creator has become kind of like
sold out.
I think that's the wrong term to use, because I love the boys.
Commercial?
Yeah, commercial. When they get commercialised, it's probably the great example where they have an agency and they want to get people on for views and clicks and things like that. But it's like they ask the same questions over and over again to the same people, and they have the same answers, and it's like, okay, cool, what's next? Like, go to Stockholm and go and into all the restaurants and bakeries, and like, that's what I want to see. That's what you're good at. Stick to what you're good at. But instead, it's interviewing different people that I have no real interest in watching, to be honest. And that's just my personal preference. Like, there's people that there'll be people out there that love it. But for me, I don't ever want to lose sight of what I love doing in that content space for the good of, we need more clicks, we need more views, we're going to get this person on and you're going to interview them. Like, I don't really care about that, to be honest. And if we're not doing it with food involved, I'm not interested.
Could I ask you a question then?
Yeah.
Because if some of your biggest haters potentially at the start are the people that are closest to you,
yeah,
how do you get the feedback that you need, which is necessary to create improvement on your content?
I ask people that are in content for that type of information, because I believe that if you're asking for advice from someone who isn't in the position that you want to be in, don't ask them for advice, because they're going to give you the wrong advice. I'll ask people that are very successful in that space about how would they handle this, what type of content do you think I should try, and I'll try it, and if it doesn't do well, at least I've tried it. And it's about just taking small pieces of information and adjusting the content slightly, because since I've taken small pieces of advice from people in that space, my content's views have skyrocketed. Someone said to me, Ross, you're naturally funny, why don't you do more meme reels? And I was like, okay, cool. I did one the other day and it's gone viral. So it's like, you have to try things in small increments, but don't go away completely from what got you there. Yeah. Because the bulk of my audience are there for the food. Like most of my viral videos are the food-based ones. But eventually, if I want to grow my platform, I'm going to have to be more like diversified and add more things or more strings to my bow. But to answer your question, I think you have to go to people that are in the position that you'd like to be in yourself, because they're the best people to give you advice.
That's when I look at that and I think about like my industry, I always go, okay, well, you can speak to some people, but really at the end of the day, if I want to be able to help someone, I'm not calling up anyone else but another medical professional.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can look at what a reviewer said about how they got treated, but at the end of the day, if I want to treat someone better, it's like, who's my panel to do that?
That's it.
And I reckon, let's say there's content creation, there's like, health professionals, but every single person, it might be your finances, it might be like, how you show up to your partner. Like having a nice little panel of friends. It
helps.
It fucking helps.
It helps. It took a long while to find those friends as well, because it sounds bad. I don't watch much food content at all, because I don't know what it is. I feel like the food space has not necessarily rejected me per se, but there was a video at the beginning of this year where it really showed me what the food industry in my content space is like. Someone threw me under the bus, and the people in the comments are people that follow me still. And they were like dragging my name through the mud. What? And I was like, and I don't forget these types of things. I'm like, I will always remember when someone's wronged me. And this video got hundreds of thousands of views on TikTok, hundreds of thousands of views. And there was
this one that you made, or someone made about you?
Someone made about me, and I was like the martyr towards the foodie industry. But this person was a foodie themselves, which made no sense at all. It was very contradictory. But the comments were filled with foodies themselves just talking about me in a negative light. And from that point onwards, I've just been like, well, I'm not collaborating with any foodies anymore, because and when they reach out to me, I know the only reason they want to reach out to me is because they want to leapfrog off of the views that I'm necessarily getting, or the cadence that I'm having with my following, because my following's growing at an astronomical rate at the moment. Like every week it's going up and up and up and up. And there's people that reach out to me in the last couple of weeks, and I'm just like, I know why you're reaching out. Like, I'm very protective of my brand at the moment, because I've been wronged a couple of times. So unless I have a relationship with somebody where they're like, hey, let's go out for a beer. If you ask me for a collab, I'm not going to do it. It's as simple as that, because I know what you want. If you ask me for a beer and you actually get to know me as a person, then I'll be happy to collab with you in the future, but not straight away. It's like when you're dating someone. It is. It's like when you're dating someone and they're like, oh, let's go on a date. And it's like, oh, relax, just chill. Let's just kick it for a little bit first and see if we like each other. Let's go for a coffee. And I feel like that's what content should be. People are so quick to throw out collab, and it just doesn't seem very, very authentic. It's like they just want something from you. And that's what I find with this content space, is that when someone throws out that collab word, it just gives me a bit of an ick, to be honest.
It's interesting to hear, because obviously, like I said, I'm a novice in the space, right?
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about like collabs, so to speak, right? Like, but I guess it is something that's, for people that are wanting to turn their passion into something that's more a business, like there's a way to go about it. And for someone like yourself who probably receives, I don't know how many hundreds of messages a day, for you to think that you're the only unique individual that is providing that opportunity. It's not the case.
No.
So where to next, bro? So, you know, you've ridden through some pretty hardcore waves.
Yep.
You've come out of it into a position where you can be proud and stand strong for what you represent, what type of content you're doing. What's next for you? And, you know, how does the next group of hardcore followers get involved in finding you?
I think, well, I've got a couple of like big collabs, but with brands where we're creating products and we're creating a bit of a buzz and disruption in the space. All sandwich related, of course. We're doing something with Nando's in the next couple of weeks where we'll have a nationwide item on the menu that I created.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Congrats, man.
Thank you. So I'm really excited about that. We've got the photo shoot this weekend just to finish it off. So I'll be on like billboards and stuff.
Bullshit.
Yeah. I'll show you some pictures. I've got some pictures on my phone. And then I've got a collab with QT Hotels as well. Similar sort of thing where there's like a launch. I'll send you the invite to the launch party. But the deli will have my own menu there. And there's like an after party, and then that'll be for like 30 days. But for me, I'd love to have my own show. I'd love to build a profile in the media space where I'm a respected member of that space. Because at the moment, it's just like, it's Ross, the food reviewer. I feel like I'm so much more than that. I feel like when I talk to my agent about where I want to take it and what I want to do, it's not always about food. I'm passionate about fashion. I love comedy. I want to write a book. I want to write a comedy series. There's so many things I want to do, and the beauty of content is once you've got an audience, the possibilities are endless. Like, you get your start, it's up to you what you do with that start if you take it somewhere else. And I think the way my career hopefully goes with this is that I create something that I've always wanted to do, and that's something that's mine. Does that make sense? Like, I want to create something that I'm remembered for and be like, well, that kid from Luton who was done, because I did nothing in school. I was useless in school. I wasn't very intelligent. I was working in warehouses up until I was 20. I didn't have very good prospects at all. And then I just fell into sales. And then I thought I was going to get stuck in sales my whole life. And now I'm here. And I've been given an opportunity, and I'm going to take it with both hands, because you just don't know where it's going to go. But I think for me, the end goal would be to have like a TV show or something to pitch to Netflix along those lines. And then who knows? Like, have my own primetime TV show? I don't know. We'll see.
You know what? When we talk about, as we said earlier in the podcast, big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're just like, that's what I want. Whatever, like, and it's not a small goal.
Yeah.
It's a big goal. And the podcast is going to be recorded, and people are going to listen to you have that goal. And the fact that you said it without really any hesitation just kind of proves that, you know, you really don't give a fuck.
No, not at all.
You know, and that's awesome, because it's liberating to be around people that can be themselves, considerate of you as well.
Yeah.
But like, can be themselves. I guess to finish off the potty, and I ask all my guests this sometime throughout the podcast, but is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel you would like to cover in this episode? And two, if there's nothing, is there any question you would like to bounce back at me? And if there's not, that's also cool too.
Yeah. I think question that I would like to ask you is, how has your kind of social circle received what you're trying to do at the moment? Has it been positive? Have there been people that have been making comments about how they think you should do it? Like, has it been well received? Have you had a lot of support? Like, what's it been like for you making that change from what you're doing now, like with being a podiatrist, to this?
Yeah, so I think my close circle of friends are critical in a good way.
Yeah. Okay.
They want to see me do well, and they go, this is what resonates with me. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And I find that quite good, because their critiques are measured when they put it across, because you can tell when someone's just trying to put you down versus when someone's like, hey, I listened to that, like, this is good. I've got a mate of mine that's a really good content creator. He's very polarizing. He's got a brand called Toddler Tough, right?
Okay.
And he's gone real bloody well. And I'm so happy for him and proud for him. But he was someone that is like, he's a hard taskmaster. And I know the content I produce is not his style of content, but he listens to it anyways. And he'll tell me if he likes something or doesn't like it. And that's been sick.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm very blessed that I've had friends that are willing to do that. I haven't had any negative experiences with close mates. I have no doubt that I've lost some of my very minimal following that I have on social media.
Yeah.
But I am also starting to learn the landscape of like trying to understand, do I have one page? Do I have two? What kind of content should I be posting on my personal page versus my podcast page?
Yeah.
Should they be one and the same or different? Because obviously you do have a little bit of a responsibility or an idea of the content that you put out needs to also be adding value. So if you don't feel like that content's adding value or it's not reflective of you, that's where I think I've had that bit of struggle. So I'm working on that.
Yeah. What's your big hairy goal?
What's my big hairy audacious goal?
Yeah.
To be able to travel and work and be able to take anyone I want with me.
Yeah.
Now, I had this conversation a couple of podcast episodes ago, but it's like, I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's the beauty of it. It's exciting because you're like, you have that goal and you're like, I don't know I'm going to get there, but I know I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And if you have that such delusional belief that you're going to get there, you'll fucking get there. And I'm that deluded that I know it's going to happen. It's just bizarre, and I think you should do the same.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's nice to have, and it's nice to have that big, hairy, audacious goal. But once again, I always say you've got to get fucking started.
Yeah.
You have to start. You do not know what's around the corner until you step to that corner.
Yep. One of my sayings is the best idea is the one you start.
Yeah.
It's on my board at home.
Yeah.
And that's also one, it's what belongs to me will find me. So it's like, as long as you're putting yourself in a situation where it's going to find you, then it will find you. But if you're sitting at home, not posting, just whinging about someone else doing something that you want to do, you're never going to get there. Yeah. So you have to action what you want to do to be where you want to be. Yeah.
Brother, if people want to support your page, support you,
please do.
How do they find you? Where do they go?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, TikTok. I'm more active on Instagram. I hate TikTok so much. I hate it. The meanest people live on TikTok.
Yeah.
There's a comment blocker on TikTok. It's like an anti-bullying blocker.
Yeah.
Like it automatically activates. So I can't take it off. But every so often, if I want to make myself feel bad about myself, I'll open it up, and there'll be just so much hate just in the comments, like, you're a piece of shit, or what? How are you paying $30 for a sandwich, you fucking numpty, and all this stuff. And I'm just like, what? Although the comments are great because it's good for engagement. Like, the more comments pushes it further. But it's just like, why are people so full of so much hate? And I've worked this out because I've been in the same situation myself. When I've had nothing going on for myself, and I genuinely like hated myself and was like borderline depressed, I was one of those people. I was one of those people commenting on posts.
Really?
Yeah. I was one of those people commenting hateful things because someone was doing something that was different, but I had nothing going on in my life. So the only thing that you feel that you have is bringing people down. So I can understand from that perspective. And I almost feel sorry for those types of people where they're so bored that all they have is to be like, you fucking cunt, or you little prick. Or like, people DM me and like abuse me for my disgusting moustache. Like, it's just like, I'm like, cool, fine, that's great, no worries. Like, I don't care. But it's like, I understand. It's because they just don't have anything else going on. And
you know, I've heard people say that.
Yeah.
But the fact that you've said you've been one of those people.
Yeah. And I'm ashamed of it because, like, when I was at my lowest in the pits, that's when I was like that. There was like content creators who were huge content creators, and I was one of those negative people. And it's like, I look back and I'm just like, wow, that's why I was doing that. So I feel like you have to go through something to understand why someone is the way they is. And if you haven't got that sort of empathy or understanding, and you can't look past it, then you'll never really understand it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brother, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And what was the Instagram handle again?
It's called Banging Sangers. BANGINSANGAS.
Great, man. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, mate. Pleasure.